when you were at Bolton, you primarily played under Sam Allardyce, and everyone knows, what a Sam Allardyce team is and the physical demands. What exactly are those physical demands?
Where do I start? I mean, you started at pre-season. My first ever pre-season, I think I was 18. And we went to Austria for a fitness camp, and we didn't get the box. We went for 9 days. And for the first 5 days, he didn't bring a football out. Like, so you literally, like, you'd leave the hotel on your bikes. We'd all have bikes. Like, I think it was about 1.5 miles on the bikes or 2 miles on the bikes to get to the training pitch. And then you'd be wishing for the assistant Phil Brown or one of the coaches to just have a bag of balls with him, and you think, no, he's not got them. He's just come in the van. He's not got them. All of it is cones, poles, everything but balls, and you're just thinking, oh my God. And we were there for 2 hours in the morning, and then a bike in the afternoon, and then you'd train again in the evening. And yeah, it was just. But as soon as them 5 days were up, you knew that the balls were out, and you'd start really enjoying pre-season again. But you just have to get over the first 5 days, and it's all mental. It was all mental with Sam. If you were mentally stable and mentally, stable is the wrong word. Mentally, you could overcome problems mentally.
Yeah.
He would love you, and he knew that you'd play well for him, and he's a massive on mentality.
Yeah, I think people underestimate Sam Allardyce really in terms of his tactics. I mean, some people like to think that they can sort of predict these sort of tactics, and they can make comparisons with Tony Pulis as well. I was listening to Ben Foster talk, and he said that they went in at halftime one game, and they were playing such really gorgeous football all of a sudden at West Brom, and Tony Pulis came in really angry, drew on the whiteboard, drew everyone's names, and just crossed out the midfield and went, I want you to get it from the defence to the attack, and just crossed out the midfield. And it was just long ball football. That's what he wanted. Yeah. Is that kind of what Sam Allardyce was going for?
Yes and no, really. He knew that the first 10 minutes of each half were crucial, because he knew that if you spend the first 10 minutes of each half in the opposition's half, you got every chance of being dominant during the game, no matter who you were playing, because it puts them on the back foot and it puts you on the front foot. And he had all the stats to prove all this. And honestly, he went through real deep on statistics and tactics, and he was a tactician. But yeah, he did. Obviously, we had players like Kevin Davis, who, 6'3", 6'3" tall, 8'3" wide, and it's like, you want to play with them type of players, because he knows what's coming. He knows there's a long diagonal ball in the first 10 minutes. That's all he's going to play for, and he's going to give the centre halves tough times, and that's how we did. But obviously, Sam Allardyce had a knack for bringing in, very talented players. Given that they might have been towards the end of the career, but we certainly got 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons out of them, which I don't think any other manager at that time could have got out of them players that we had.
Yeah. Do you know, Sam is such an interesting character. He's fascinating, because the comparison a lot of people make with Sam is Mike Bassett, right? Which I think is a little unfair. Have you seen the film, the Mike Bassett?
I've seen it many times. Yeah, I've seen it.
It's an absolute belter for the people that haven't watched it. It is just.
Well, Sammy Lee's like Dodsey. Sammy Lee's exactly like Dodsey. He's the manager. That's Sammy Lee. That. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Yeah, that's it.
That's the comparison that comes up, right? Is Sam and Mike Bassett, and I think it's a little unfair. But looking back, obviously, hindsight is a wonderful thing. You mentioned, especially, there was no ball work for 5 days. Now, when you look at the clubs abroad developing technical players, the balls are out at breakfast. They're making sure that you've got a ball constantly. Do you maybe think it was archaic, but looking back now, do you think it was maybe the wrong approach?
For that time, no. I can categorically say no, because we were fitter than anybody else that we came up against. It proved in games that we won, and games that we drew in the last minutes of games and stuff, because we knew that we could go to the end of games. We could outrun people and opposition players within the last 10, 15 minutes of games. We had all the stats to prove it, and he was adamant about you put in the hard work for the first 4 weeks of the pre-season, the whole of July.
Yeah.
And then August, your pre-season games take care of themselves, because obviously there's nothing like match fitness, but you need a big build up in fitness to get to the match fitness, really. And he was a massive believer in all that.
Yeah, he seemed to be very ahead of the curve when it came to sports science as well. I remember, reading a lot about Sam being sort of one of the first to implement it, which I think is impressive, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for that. When they talk about sports science, Nicky, what did he sort of implement? Obviously, you mentioned data and various other things. Was there anything in particular that he brought that sort of from a sort of sports science standpoint that other clubs didn't?
I think we were one of the first clubs to have a cryotherapy machine. I think there was only maybe possibly Arsenal had one. He was big on recovery. Recovery after games, he was massive on. He's massive on what you eat after games, how you recover. The 2 days after a game is the most crucial part of the following. Even if you had if you went from Saturday to Saturday, so the average week was you play on a Saturday, if you didn't have a game on the Tuesday, you'd be off Sunday. And then in Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, in Thursday, Friday, play Saturday. But the Sunday and Monday, Sunday you'd be recovering at home, doing what you're doing with your family. Then Monday you'd be in for 2-3 hours and it'd be total recovery. The ones that played would just be total recovery. It'd be ice baths, hot and cold baths, hot showers, cold bath again, and then into the cryotherapy chamber. That's the worst experience of your life. Do not ever. It's the freezingest thing that I've ever been in. And I've been in like cold lakes in Austria or in places like that in pre-season. And it was nowhere near. It's like, I don't know what it is, minus 50 degrees or something like that in there. It's so cold. But he was adamant about recovery. And he had, he was massive on stats, but he was also big on psychological. He had a psychologist, Mike Ford, which was great. He worked for quite a few years, I think. And then I think he's ended up at Chelsea. He went to Chelsea after us. He's made a career about sports psychology, specifically in football. And he had all the people. I think at one point we went to an away game. I think it might have been a European game. And we had 21 staff and 19 players, I think, on the away game. It got to a stage where he had that many, but they all were crucial in implementing what he wanted to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. He seemed very ahead of the curve when it came to that.